What's good, Detroit Sports Nation? I am Eric Vincent, your host here at the DSN News Desk, back again to chop it up with you, the best fan base in the world. I appreciate your time and support. And we ramp it up to my favorite time of the year. The NBA tip-off for the regular season is right around the corner, just about a week away. I don't really need much ramping up. I'm as excited as I can be, but for everybody else and for the season, for the fans, we got to do this the right way. The Pistons kick off the regular season next week against the Orlando Magic, so it's only right that we get the best of the best to join us in to talk about it. This guy is no stranger to Detroit media at all. A former radio correspondent for 105.1 when they were the flagship station for the Pistons. Also spent some time in 97, won the ticket, and now he is debuting as the new play-by-play caller for 96.9 The Game for the Orlando Magic. Good friend to the Detroit area, my man Jake Chapman. Welcome to the show, man. Good to have you.
What's up, Eric? How are you? Thanks for having me, bro.
Hey,
I appreciate that. Look, I mean, I like that intro, but it just makes me feel old, dude. Like,
I mean, you an OG, you a legend. I gotta make sure we address you properly, man.
Once the resume gets past like 5 lines, it's like, oh my, I've been working for a long time.
But you also in different locations too, so we gotta make sure we go over the top now. Your resume getting higher and higher out here, man.
That's true. That's true.
Hey, it's an absolute pleasure, man. Seriously awesome. You were one of my favorite listens back when you were on 105.1. You were doing, I believe, pregame and postgame when they were for the flagship. Is that correct?
Correct. Yep. So I was with the Magic for 5 years, and then when the Pistons signed with 105.1, 105.1 hired me to executive produce and host pre and post. And that lasted 3.5 years, 4 years technically, but the last year was, we don't want to talk about that one.
We can let that slide.
It was, yeah, that was tricky.
I feel you. Well, good to have you on here, man. So obviously you're in Florida now. Kind of talk about the landscape and what's been going on, like while you're down in Florida.
Yeah, so after I left Detroit, I went back to Cleveland, my hometown, and I worked for 92.3 The Fan and the Browns Radio Network, and I did that for about a year, and then my old boss in Orlando called, and they said, you want to come back and host pre and post and produce again, and do our podcast and all that stuff. So that was back in 2019. So I'm going back into my 4th season since being back here with the Magic. It'll be like my 10th with the team overall. The last 2 years we stopped. We got rid of our radio broadcast. We were simulcasting the television broadcasts on the air. So I'm producing and I'm hosting pre and post, but then I'm not tossing to Mark Champion or Rick Mulhorn. I'm tossing to George and Greg. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, we're having the television call on the radio, which just doesn't work. It's not, you need more. You can't, when you're doing TV, you can see stuff, and when you're doing radio, you can't see stuff.
Exactly.
So it wasn't ideal, but it was, it was born out of the pandemic. Everybody was making sacrifices across the organization, so we did what we had to do. But my boss and I have been kind of lobbying, hey, let's bring back radio. Just let me do it. Just let me do it. Bring back radio. Just let me do the call. So basically now it's the same as it was. I'm still producing the broadcast. I have a graduate assistant who helps me out. And we have some tech guys around, but I'm still sort of doing everything, hosting, producing, and then I just keep talking. Now I'm doing play-by-play, so I'm excited for it.
Jack of all trades. That's why you're great, man. That's why you're great out here.
Eric,
awesome.
If you want to be in radio, I learned this long ago. Wear many hats, my man.
Oh, hey, I know that very damn well. You got to have your hands active everywhere. That's a whole fact. So, yes, you're doing great here in the the Orlando media world. Let's talk about the bit of the fan base, because we're seeing the Pistons and the Magic kind of go through kind of a similar timeline right now. They're both under as they say in Detroit, they're under a restoration phase. They're not rebuilding.
Yes, right.
So they're restoring right now, and you kind of see the same timeline with the Magic right now. How are the fans, and what's the buzz right now for the Orlando Magic basketball?
It's funny because I said that, I think over the summer, mainly just because the Pistons had the number 1 pick last year, and we had it this year. Yep. And so it feels like we're about a year behind. And I do think, if my timeline is right, the rebuild with Troy was about a year before Jeff and John kind of decided to blow it up here, because you're talking about only about 2 years ago now. It was Steve Clifford's team. It was Nick Vucevic and Aaron Gordon and Evan Fournier. It was a veteran group.
Yep.
They got to the trade deadline one year and they blew it up. Vooch to Chicago, Aaron to Denver, Evan to Boston, whatever. And so you knew at that point, like, okay, it's going to be a restoration or whatever you want to call it. It feels like the Pistons probably have a little bit higher expectations this year than the Magic do, but both teams, I think, are at the point where it's like, okay, we got a lot of young talent. Now we got to start to see the results. I know Pistons fans were were disappointed with the way last year went, I'm not going to judge whether or not the expectations were appropriate. All I'll say is you don't win a lot of games with a lot of youth. I don't care what your youth is and how good it is. Like, yeah, Cade Cunningham's going to be really good. Jaden Ivey is really exciting, but it's really difficult to beat the Brooklyn Nets and the Boston Celtics when you're 22 years old. It's just kind of the way it goes. So I think probably the excitement there is a little bit more palpable than it is here because, everybody thinks Cade is really going to take a step in year 2, and he likely will. If you're going based on what you saw the second half of last year once he got kind of comfortable. But with that said, anytime you got young players like Paolo or Cade, top picks, Franz Wagner down here, everybody's really excited about, you start to sort of feel that bubbling. Everybody's like, okay, maybe we should jump on the bandwagon now. I don't know if it'll work this year. I'm not sure. I think an ideal set of expectations for us this year is, playing, like shooting for a playoff spot. You want to be playing meaningful basketball in March. Right. I don't think anybody expects us to be a top 4 team in the Eastern Conference, and rightfully so. We're still really young, but you just want to see that improvement. We're in year 2 now under Coach Mosley, so you don't want to be making the same mistakes as you did last year, and I think that's reasonable. I think just expecting a young team that might be playing dangerous basketball against playoff teams or maybe even flirting with a playoff spot late into March and April is probably an ideal set of expectations for us. I know y'all are a little bit more ahead on that probably. If you guys are not in the playoff race, I think everybody's going to be a little disappointed, and I think that's fair as well.
I feel you. And you hit on it perfectly. I feel like, yes, if you're a young team, you can't expect instant victories. Like what the Cavs did last year was very rare. Like, that doesn't happen around the NBA very often. So I feel like if you're in this restoration phase, you at the very least want to start with interest. Have some intrigue with your team. And I think Orlando has a lot of that right now.
And, Eric, I'll say this, too. Keep in mind with the Cavs, what happened when Ricky Rubio got hurt? That was, Ricky Rubio was so important to them. How great Kevin Love played. Yep. So, yeah, like Darius Garland and Evan Mobley, were obviously the core and the most talented pieces there. But that was still kind of a veteran-laden group, especially compared to the Pistons. Like, the Pistons are, who are the veterans that are playing big minutes and crunch time minutes that you really trust? It's not necessarily somebody on the level of Kevin Love. Let's just put it that way.
Absolutely. A lot of those veterans are new guys that they're trying to fill in. So, kind of speaking to that excitement, at least for me, when the draft came around, my dream was to pair Cade and Paolo as the next Amari and Steve Nash. That's what I thought was going to happen if the Pistons got the correct luck in the draft lottery. Didn't work out. I'm cool with Jaden Ivey. I think he's going to pair well. And I love where Paolo is with the Magic. Talk about what the fans were thinking when they got that pick and how you think he's going to, adjust to this franchise.
Well, it was wild because the lottery party, like when we landed the first pick period, was one of the first times that I had been we went to a podcast party at this bar downtown, and it was the first time I hugged strangers since the pandemic. You know what I mean? Like when we got the first pick, the whole place went nuts, and people just don't invade each other's space like that anymore, which is generally cool. But at that moment, we were all like, yes. I'm like, okay, I probably got to go disinfect myself afterwards or whatever. I got beer getting thrown on me. I'm like, oh, this is what it was like before the pandemic. So that was really cool, and it was, it sort of felt like, okay, maybe the rebuild and the losses the last couple of years is worth it. Like maybe, we finally found a stroke of luck. Eric, we had no idea who they were going to take. I worked for the team. We had no idea who they were going to take. They did such a good job of keeping that under wraps. So, and I didn't think it was going to be Paolo because of what you had heard and whatever. Mm-hmm. I went, and about a week before the draft, I started to kind of sour on Jabari, just because I think there's a little bit of, like, he's going to be a shooter. I'm not sure he's going to be a creator. And I think with Paolo and even with Chet, I think there's so much more that eventually could blossom. We have no idea. I mean, they're all so young, and we're projecting so much. But I think the home run swing was either Chet or Paolo, and I'm glad they took one of them.
Totally agree. I think even Paolo was surprised when he heard his name called in that purple suit. Like, everybody thought it was going to be Jabari. Everyone kept comparing him to Kevin Durant. And a lot of the Paolo love has been kind of like up and down because they thought he couldn't play defense and his shooting. It was a whole lot of question marks. But I was a huge Paolo Banchero fan even before March Madness. So I love what he's got. I love what he brings to this team. Kind of talk about how he fits with guys like Franz Wagner, Jalen Suggs. Like, what do you think he brings to this unit of rebuilding team?
Well, hopefully playmaking, because there's just a lot of questions. So the front line is going to look like Franz Wagner, Paolo Banchero, and Wendell Carter Jr., and that is formidable. Wendell played great last year, and we're all very, very excited about him. I mean, he could be a really, really, really good player. Yep. The backcourt there's talent, but there's questions. So Jalen had a really, really rough rookie season, and now he just went down with a knee sprain. And you can't, with Jalen, it's just felt like, failure to launch so far, so to speak. Cole Anthony is super talented, but he's a scorer. He's going to distribute, but so we need Markelle Fultz to be a point guard. We need him to be the general on the floor, and Markelle broke his toe, and so he's going to miss training camp again. And it's been start and stop with Markelle as well. We need somebody to put the ball in his hands, and whether or not that's a 1 or a 3 or whatever Paolo Banchero is, we need somebody to run the offense through, and so that's going to be he can play make, he can create for others. What he's so special at is you put the ball in his hands and you do some ISO stuff, and he's either going through somebody or going around somebody because he is that big and he's that fast. So now it's a matter of, he was talking about this last week, he's always run ISO stuff, and even at Duke last year, because if you've got Paolo Banchero, why would you not run ISO? Just give the man the ball. Right. But now he needs to run pick and roll, and now it's not going to be as easy for him physically as it's been in the past, and that's where the learning curve is going to come from. So, I expect him to explode some games. I expect him to turn the ball over some games. If he can get to the free throw line, I think that's a really good start. Like, use that physicality. I mean, dude, he's every bit of 6'11", 260. I mean, he's and he's a baby. Like, he's gonna physically, he's gonna be able to do some things. It doesn't look like it's too fast for him right now. It looks like maybe he's sometimes a little impatient, doesn't know exactly what he wants to do. Should I break this guy down? Should I keep moving within the flow of the offense? That's just going to come with the reps. But we saw on Friday night, 3 preseason games in, he kind of broke out of his shell against Dallas, and it looked like on Friday night he was starting to feel himself a little bit. So I expect him to be the focal point of our offense for a really long time.
Absolutely. Seeing that, you said it, he has a 6'11", 250 frame. A lot of times when players come in, any level, high school, college, pros, players fake and lie about their frames all the time. He is every bit of that 6'11", 250 NBA body that he had in college. And I
asked Wendell Carter Jr., and if you can picture him, like, that dude he's no joke. Like, he's a tough customer. He was like, I mean, he's like, young fella's got, I mean, and he's just coming off banging with him all week at training camp. It's one of those things where you see it, you read it, and then you see it, like, you get on the floor with him, and you're like, oh, okay.
It's for real. So let's have a little bit of fun. We kind of talked about a lot about how the rebuilding phase is going for both teams. For the Pistons, they have a lot of scenarios that have to play out perfectly in order for them to be that overachiever like the Cavaliers were. They have to have Sadiq become more efficient. We have to have Beef Stew take a step forward defensively and offensively. We need to see Jalen Duren, Jaden Ivey, see them excel. K taking that second step. It's a lot of things that have to go right for the Pistons to be in that perfect story type atmosphere for the team, for the franchise. What do you think has to happen for the Magic in order for them to kind of be in that same kind of realm?
Ooh, that's a good question. I mean, obviously Paolo I think it starts with him. Boy, if this team could stay healthy, that'd be a good step in the right direction.
Yeah, that's killing them right now, yeah.
Oh, man. I mean, it's been one thing after another. I mean, Jonathan Isaac still ain't practicing. And so you get Jonathan Isaac back mid-season, let's say, and there is absolutely no timeline whatsoever, so I'm not reporting anything. But let's just say that happens. It'll feel like a transaction. It'll feel like making a trade because we haven't seen him. He hasn't been a part of the plans for 2 seasons now, and going on 3. So I think that would be great if you could get him back, and he could give you 80% of the player that he was, because he was a all defensive team type of guy when he was healthy. I think getting stability is the biggest thing for this franchise, because there's a lot of young talent, but if you're starting and stopping, if guys are coming in and out of the lineup because of injuries, and because of trades or whatever, last year, they started like sort of vibing a little bit, and then the pandemic hit. Now all of a sudden we're playing all these G League guys.
Right.
There's just been so much that's gotten in the way of progress over the last 2 seasons here that I think everybody thinks there's enough talent. You just got to do it. You got to go out there. You got to take your lumps. You have to progress. You have to stop turning the ball over. You have to shoot the ball better. It's a make or miss league. I hate that phrase, but this team misses a lot. If this team makes more shots, that'll make a huge difference. We've got a lot of guys. The idea is positionless basketball, right? And that's really appealing to me. Like, I love the idea of 5, 6, 9 guys who can switch screens, and you're not going to be able to get a jumper up,
right?
But typically, the 6'9" swing guys don't shoot the ball as well, and that's the problem we have. Right. We got a whole bunch of guys who can defend, and we played really good defense last year. Even our starting 5 was one of the youngest in the league. Had some of the best defensive efficiency numbers, but shooting the ball from the perimeter has been a mess. The offense has basically been a mess. We need to make shots and not turn the ball over, and we'll win a bunch of games because the defense is going to be fine.
I feel you on that. Definitely a lot of size, a lot of athleticism, and a lot of youth, so they're going to be, using that to their advantage. You're a big social media guy here. Before we get into the question, tell everybody where they can follow you and, get a hold of you on your socials and all that.
At Jake Chapman OM on Twitter and on Instagram.
Yeah, you're one of my favorite follows on Twitter, and a lot of what we saw last season was NBA toxicity at its worst. We saw that draft class. Everybody was so hype about their rookies. The Magic were super hype on Franz, who I think is super, super underrated. I love his game. And we saw a lot of that with Scotty Barnes winning Rookie of the Year. The Cleveland fans hyping up Evan Mobley the way they did. Jalen Green in Houston. It was a lot of that going on. Is there any kind of that right now with Paulo and the Magic fan base and like maybe Jamari with the Rockets right now?
I don't know. I mean, Paulo had some beef with DeJounte over the summer.
That was crazy.
Some of that Seattle beef. I don't like to wade too deeply into that. That hometown stuff, I learned a long time ago. Stay out of that.
Yeah.
No, I don't know, but you're right. It's funny. The Toronto stuff is so weird. Like, they're very, very defensive about their young players, and I think they have a chip on their shoulder because they're up there. Yep. But I remember when I was in Detroit, that was the DeRozan Lowry teams. We, the North, they were coming in to the Palace and to Little Caesars Arena in droves, and I was sitting there going, we got to step up with this. Like, so I think they, at the very least, they can back it up a little bit. But no, I mean, look, Eric, I've worked in the league so long now, and I do think working for different franchises changed my perspective. I just love the amount of talent that we have. I think there's so much to celebrate as opposed, like, I love watching Scotty Barnes play. I don't care that. That he had a better rookie season according to some than Franz Wagner. What does it matter? Like, that dude's cool.
I'm with you on that. And again, it adds to the intrigue. I feel like even just the comment section under Bleacher Report, just fans going back and forth for teams that are not huge markets and are trying to reestablish their relevance. I love seeing that. It's gives it a more exciting reason. We're kind of seeing it a little bit now with the Pistons with Jaden Ivey as our number 5 pick. But before him was Keegan Murray. And the Kings and the Pistons fan base has just been super toxic since then.
Really?
So.
See, I haven't. I usually pick up on that stuff because I'm still pretty much Detroit. I have a lot of Detroit Twitter still, but I didn't even really realize that. I'll tell you what, though, that Murray kid, he is real nice.
I've been saying, I don't think the Kings king. They got themselves a good player. And
I like the Kings roster. I was watching the other night. I'm going, wait a second. This is Sacramento?
They're not bad. Yeah, during the summer league, it was mad toxicity going back and forth. Keegan had his first awesome game, and take that Pistons and da-da-da. So, again, it makes it more fun. It's going to be, an emotional upswing up and down, but it was fun. I've really been enjoying it.
In the offseason, we don't have anything better to do than be toxic.
Absolutely.
So that's what it is.
Why not have some fun with this? Talk a little trash. Again, the NBA regular season tips off for the Detroit Pistons on the 19th, taking a home matchup against the Orlando Magic. I'm super excited. How do you see the game playing out for the two teams?
Well, I have no idea, to be honest with you. I don't know, right? Like, I don't know. So we've got 3 preseason games under our belt, and we played the Grizzlies last week, and we just kicked the ball around the gym. It was sloppy. Well, the Grizzlies do that to you. Then we played 2 really good preseason games, I thought, or at least fairly good outings, and what I liked on Thursday and Friday, we beat San Antonio and Dallas. What I liked was, like what I was saying before, we weren't making the same mistakes we did on Monday. It felt like they were like, listening and processing and really making an effort to clean up on the offensive end, which again is pretty much what the difference is going to be. I think if we can hold Saddiq Bey under 50 points and we stand a good chance. That dude lit us up last year, and we had a couple guys come in. Van Vliet's done it to us. We've had a few guys come in and just get off, and it's not, I understand, like, Saddiq Bey is a great shooter, but like, do something. Like, you can't get hit up for 50 points by anybody unless it's like Durant, like or Steph. Like, I'll let them do it. That's fine. This is not a knock on Saddiq Bey or Fred VanVleet. He's an all-star caliber player. Mm-hmm. You can't. You got to do something. Send 5 guys at him. There's no way that should be happening. So I think there'll be better game plans for it. But look, I'm really interested. Talking about two rosters, 2 teams with tons of youth on the roster. So I think probably the best bet is turnovers, free throws, and rebounds, like most games come down to. Limit those, knock down your free throws, and that'll be your winner on opening night.
The Saddiq Bey thing still trips me out. That was the only game playing that day last season. I wasn't even watching the game. I was out and about, and I'm looking at my phone, and I see the box score, and it's like Saddiq Bey has 30 in the first half. Like, what is happening? They turn on the TV, and you see him going off. And crazy enough, every shot it seemed like he was taking, like you talked about the defense, there was a lot of hands in his face. It was a lot of pressure on him, but he just could not miss for whatever reason. That was an insane game.
Sight lines. He likes the sight lines at Amway Center, apparently.
He absolutely does. Hey, man, this has been an awesome time. I'm super, super excited for the regular season to tip off. Can't wait to hear you on the play-by-play calls. Let them know again where they can find you and how they can listen to you in Orlando.
Yeah, you can listen if you download the NBA League Audio Pass. It's $10 for the whole season. You can listen to any radio broadcast across the league. You can also listen on Sirius if you are a Sirius subscriber. And then, of course, you can follow me on social at Jake Chapman, OM, as in Orlando Magic. That's on Twitter and on Instagram as well.
He's an awesome follow. Make sure you tap in with him, man. I really appreciate you being here on the DSN News Desk. Everybody listening, thank you for your time and support as well. Make sure you talk to us in the comment section. Let me know how you're feeling about your teams, Piston fans, Magic fans, or, hey, maybe if we've made some Raptors fans or some Rockets fans mad in the comments and you're watching, let us know. We'll talk about it. We'll get a little discourse in. Subscribe to the channel as we ride down to 5,000 subscribers. Of course, hit us up on our socials as well on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Search us and follow Detroit Sports Nation. And you can tap in with me as well at Vincent. Jake, seriously, man, it was an absolute pleasure with you being here, man. I really appreciate it. We'll definitely be talking during the season. Anything else you want to say before we get on out of here?
No, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Y'all be well.
Absolute pleasure, man. No problem. We'll see you again soon. Peace.